good. All right, good morning, everyone. We're going to officially call our meeting to order. As is our custom here at GRTC, we go around the room and introduce ourselves. We'll start here at the table with our board members, and I will start, and then we'll go to my left around, and then we'll go over to Tony and do the perimeter. I'm Talon Nelson. I represent the County of Henrico on the GRTC board.
Cheryl Adams, CEO.
Bonnie Ashton, General Counsel.
Todd here, Henrico County.
Dan Schmidt, Henrico County.
Dave Anderson, representing Chesterfield.
Carter Smith, Chesterfield.
Andreas Addison, City of Richmond.
Tony Bird, Director of Maintenance, GRTC.
Joe Phillips, GRTC.
Antoinette Haynes, GRTC.
Tanya Thompson, Director of Procurement, GRTC.
Good morning, Ashley Mason, GRTC.
Sam Safe, Director of Planning and Scheduling, GRTC. Janice Swift, Executive Assistant.
Johnson Throne, Chief Financial Administrative Officer, GRTC.
Adrian Torres, Chief of Staff, GRTC.
Wayne Hallville.
Diana Hall, RV Rapid Transit.
Richard Hankins, RV Rapid Transit.
Monica Carr, Safety Service Compliance Manager.
Anthony Cutter, Director of Risk Management, GRTC.
Tim Morrow, Chief of Transit Operations, GRTC.
Maurice Scott, Attorney at ADU 12 Home.
Dan Model, Plan RBA.
Sharika Ruffin, RideFinders.
Ken Lance, Plan RBA.
Dexter, Director of IT, GRTC.
All right, good. Welcome, everyone, to our GRTC meeting. So our March meeting, I'm going to ask Ashley Mason to come forward now and lead us in our public comment section.
Good morning, Mr. Board Chair, members of the board. The public notice, meeting agenda, and agenda attachments for this March 21st, 2023 standing meeting of the Board of Directors of GRTC, RideFinders, and Old Dominion Transit Management Company were posted on March 13th, 2023 at ridegrtc.com. Per the meeting notice, all written comments received via email by Ashley Mason prior to 5 p.m. on the day preceding a meeting were provided to all members of the board the night before the meeting, are read during the public comment period of the meeting by staff following the 2-minute speaking limit, and will be included in the minutes of the meeting. Also, per the meeting notice, this meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. For this meeting, I received no public comments.
Thank you, Ms. Mason. Is there anyone here in the room who wants to bring forth public comments to the board? If so, make your way up to the podium and let us know who you are. All right. No public comments. Colleagues, we cannot approve the minutes because we are one person short. We need 2 persons from each jurisdiction. Lincoln Saunders is not able to be here this morning because he has a sick child. And so once Ellen Robertson arrives, then we'll be able to approve the minutes. The consent agenda item, we got five pieces: procurement of flatbed record, facilities master plan task order, Title VI program resolution, pulse station modifications, procurement threshold updates. Mr. Bird, Ms. Saint, Ms. Thompson are all here to answer questions. Anybody have any questions about anything on the consent agenda? All right, so we're going to circle back. Good morning, Ms. Councilwoman Robinson.
Good morning.
Let's circle back and approve the minutes from the February meeting. Does anyone have any questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, can I get a motion?
Second.
All right, made in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Do I need to say who makes the motion in seconds for the purpose? Okay, so motion was made by Smith, second by X. All right. Consent agenda. Being that there are no questions, right? All right, we need a motion and second.
So moved.
Second.
All right, who moved? All right, Robertson and Ms. Bowles, that's Smith. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Information items. Updated list of recent and upcoming procurement. Tanya Thompson. Welcome back, Ms. Thompson. We missed you last
Thank
month.
you, appreciate that.
Mr. Andrew, good morning.
I don't want to scare you with my loud voice. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Procurement's report is on pages 14 and 15 of your board packet. At this time, I'd like to highlight 4 projects added to this month's report. The first is tire lease services for our transit vehicles. Our current contract with Michelin North America Incorporated will expire on May 31st. So at this time, staff is pursuing another contract through the invitation for bids process. The estimated cost of contracting over a 5-year period is $3,080,000, and we anticipate board award this spring. The next procurement is for mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire sprinkler services. Our facilities team would like to contract for preventive maintenance, repair, and replacement services for all these systems. The estimated value of this contract is $2,100,000 over a 3-year period. The next procurement is for website redesign services. Staff is seeking to update GRTC's website in order to make it more rider-focused and to properly support the organization's needs for activities such as paratransit eligibility certification, employment offerings, developer data portal, and contracting opportunities. Staff has budgeted $100,000 for these services, and it is our intention to bring the board a recommendation for award again this spring. Lastly, it is our intention to provide our drivers with restroom facilities at our downtown transfer center. The cost of this structure is estimated to be $200,000, and we will be seeking board award this spring for that as well. Are there any questions?
I think we talked a little bit about, in the committee meeting, about the restrooms concept. Is this a permanent restroom, or is this one that will have other uses elsewhere if that transfer station has a different location down the road?
It is a temporary, yes.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Ms. Thompson.
Thank you.
All right, safety report, Mr. Carter.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'll be going over the safety performance report for the month of February. This is found on pages 16 through 21 of the board packet. Starting off with the numbers, really from the month of January to the month of February, we didn't see a whole lot of change. In the month of January, we had 42 total events, and in the month of February, we had 41. Going over the trending report, again, it's not a whole lot of change. We did see a slight uptick in the rear-end accidents. Most of those were hit and run type accidents where they basically brushed the back of the bus and kept on going. We've got a good relationship with hit and run detectives with Richmond Police Department, where most of them happen. So we're working to sort of get in contact with those individuals and get that money back. But other than that, like I said, so far as the trendings and what we're seeing, we really didn't see a whole lot of difference. We did notice an uptick in verbal assaults for the month of February, but there again, they were minor assaults that was just verbal, no physical, or anything of that nature. So far as on the care side, again, the trending reports show that actually numbers went down for them on so far as events, and trending reports really didn't show anything that was different from the prior month. Are there any questions?
So what registers as passenger incidents again? So the 12 in February, what would be like some examples of?
If a person gets on the bus and actually falls down, I'm sure it's going to their seat, falls and contacts with the bus or something of that nature. We have situations where people fall out of their seats. That's considered a passenger event.
So, Pat, so let's say somebody falls out the seat. You had to pull the bus over, stop, write it up.
Yes, sir. They would call it in, go through normal protocol, supervisor would come out and do an actual report.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Service report, operator staffing, Mr. Barney.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board, everyone. The operations report you'll see starting on page 21 of your board packet. We maintained the number of operators from January, did not increase nor decrease. We did have 3 operators leave the organization in February, but we did have 3 graduate, so we had a net of 0. The operation stats, there have been some slight improvement in some areas, absenteeism, OTP's been pretty steady as well. So still working on improvements in those areas. One other thing I want to point out in the specialized transportation side, even though there have been some improvements in on-time performance, it's still not anywhere near acceptable as far as their 92% goal goes. So we're working with them to address their operational challenges. Main thing is manpower. Same thing we're experiencing on the fixed route side. So we have a new safety manager in place and working with the corporate staff and here locally to address that by increasing the number of classes they have to get their operators up to an acceptable level as well. Unless there are any questions, and lose my report. Oh, I'm sorry. We do have 11 operators scheduled to start next Monday. And we still are maintaining monthly classes. And we are also continuing with interviewing for the next class, which will be around the 24th. But we want to start bringing people in early. So those folks who don't have CDLs, instead of having them start on the start date, we're going to have them come in early to do the classroom portion to get their actual CDL. So that'll be out of the way before they actually start. So that's something we're going to work on starting next month to kind of improve and get those numbers up as well.
And so we're at the end of March. So we're at a net or a minus as it relates to drivers right now?
In relation to our booking, we're still short. Still 21 operators short.
Well, I mean, January, February, half of March. Have we added more than we've taken in? I'm not talking about the baseline of what we want to get to. So it's net 0.
Net 0
for the year.
Yeah, so far. Yes.
Okay. All right. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So you said 11 is coming on in
Next
our
week.
county next week.
Mhm.
So we'll see that in next week report.
No, we actually, the numbers I give are the numbers post-graduation. I give a separate number in terms of training because they haven't gone into service yet.
And what's the training again? 8 weeks or something?
It depends. 8 weeks is the basic if they have their CDL, if they have prior experience. But otherwise, it may take up to 12 weeks if they don't have a CDL learner's permit, because we have to go through the new federal mandate that came into effect last year, which requires certification. So that takes a little longer for them to go through the training.
If I may, that's why we're starting this new program where we would bring them in 2 weeks ahead of the normal class start date so they can get ahead and hopefully graduate with the rest of them that have CDL. So we developed a task force in-house, and that was one of the things that came out of that task force so that they can get ahead, but also so that we don't lose people, because we interview for people now and the class may not start till the middle of April. And between now and then, people will find other employment. So we're trying to retain all those people by doing that as well.
Mr. Chair, of the 11, how many are coming in already having their CDL?
I don't know if you know what you're telling.
Not all your top 5 years.
And for some reason, I remember Mark saying 5 needed
That could be
CDLs.
it,
Yeah,
yes.
so 5 needed CDLs.
Of the 3 that just recently graduated, how many started that class? Do you know?
I mean, what?
Of the 3 that just graduated, how many started that class?
How many start?
Started with that group.
Yeah, 3 graduated out of how many? How many began that training?
Oh, well, that was the group from late last year. I think it may have been the last class of last year, November. I can get that for you before the end of the board meeting, but off the top of my head, I'm not sure.
And of the 11 that are coming online, how many started that? The reason I'm asking, Cheryl, is the tracking. It's spectacular news, right? The 3 is great. The 11 is even better news. But I'm just curious if, and then hearing that the interviews are starting for the next class, that's tracking, that's trending, and that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, basically what you're asking for is the throughput, the graduation rate.
That's exactly right.
Which I do track, but off the top of my head, like, we normally track around 80%.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm asking. So if, and you said you start interviews, if that trend keeps on track, as you're graduating, you start interviews, that means there'll be a class in April, right? And then if that number continues to be 11, that means that a year from now, we're sitting here with 80 graduates.
Yes.
So that's why I'm asking.
And tied into that, you have to also remember retention, because we want to keep that baseline of losing no more than about 4 people per month.
Yeah, and look at the chart you gave us with regard to, you saw the January spike. If you look at the chart, we know that that's a good piece of retirement. But February returned right back to where November and December and close to October and close to July again. So that, again, trends are pointed in the direction of the end result 12 months from now.
Yeah, we maintain that 3 to 4 people net loss per month. We should be in pretty good shape once we keep those higher numbers up, like you said.
That's exactly right. So I'm just curious if we could track that.
Get that information though, if you can. So 3 graduated, we want to know how many started.
Oh, yeah.
If you can do that.
I can hobble to my office and get it back to you.
It's just the pipeline as well, the retention, the culture, the treatment, that's great. And it's 50% of the battle, right? Making sure they're happy here. But also continue to fill in that pipeline. Over long term, we'll get the results we're looking for.
And then I also track, I've started it like before the pandemic, like 3-4 years ago, the number of graduates per year that actually stay beyond. So we also look at, see how people are staying long term as well.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Byrd, vehicle facility maintenance. Facility report maintenance data.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Here for the maintenance report on page 26 of the board packet. Currently, we are 2 techs short of our budget number, but we do have interviews set up for this Friday. Hopefully, we will be up to 100% by then. That's it for the maintenance report. Any questions?
The 2 that you lost, did they retire or?
So we were to lose 2 before the pandemic. We were 5 short, and we lost 11 during the pandemic. So we brought our numbers up to 11, and now we're focusing on the ones we did not have before the pandemic. So we're continuing to build.
Yeah, so you're talking about pre-pandemic, you were back last meeting, now you're going back to the budget.
Exactly.
Okay, that's good.
How do you usually do with the interviewing of mechanics? I mean, I would assume that most folks that come in have experience, right?
Yes.
So what are you looking for? What kind of experience are you looking for?
Some type of experience as related to any type of automotive technology, cars, buses, trucks, anything like that. Even fresh out of high school, fresh out of college, things of that nature.
So it doesn't have to be bus maintenance experience.
No, it does not.
Some level of.
As long as it's maintenance period.
Right, okay.
We actually have an apprenticeship program where we could take someone that maybe graduated from high school and went to auto tech school, technical school, and bring them in under that program. It's a 3-year program, and they would get classroom training as well.
Okay.
So doesn't necessarily have to have the experience.
All right, great. That's it. Any other questions? All right, thank you, sir. Let's see. Ridership report.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. This information is going to be on page 29 of your board packet. Looking at month over month, we see both local and post ridership up slightly. That's a really good sign since February has 3 less days than January. Looking at local bus, that's up year over year and from pandemic. See, it's up nearly 15% over February 2020. That was the last month before the shutdowns began with COVID. So that's a very positive sign. Also draw your attention to the bottom right-hand corner of the monthly ridership report. You'll see that fiscal year to date, we're up nearly 11% across all modes. So that's another good sign. Also, I wanted to briefly kind of report out a little bit on the performance of the changes we made in January, specifically the Route 1s. If you'll recall, we made some pretty significant structural changes to those routes. So looking at the average weekday ridership in particular, adding it up across all 4 ones. If we look at February 2022 versus February 2023, the ones are up 33% on an average weekday. Kind of comparing that to the fact that our year-over-year growth for all local routes is up 22%, the fact that just the ones are up 33 indicates that there is some organic growth that's been happening with this change. So I'll provide a more detailed report with the Q3 report in the development committee meeting in April. If there are no questions, that concludes my report.
Any questions, colleagues? All right, thank you, Ms. Simpson. Ms. Carter, rider comment.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So I'm gonna go over the rider comments in the month of February, which can be found on page 31 of the board packet. You will note that the pass-up passenger non-verified number is still kind of high, although not quite as high as last month, but we're still continuing to look at that. And actually, we did look a little closer at why there's so many non-verified pass-up passenger. And we found that based on the information provided by the caller or so forth, either there were cases where there was no one in the stop, or maybe there were people in the stop, but everyone didn't go board, so we don't know if what was coming into play there. Also, we found that several times throughout the month of February, one of the stops at 9th and Main was open and closed and open and closed, and that could have also been some of it as to why that number is high. Moving down a little bit to early schedule verified, again, that number jumped out a little bit, which we did follow up with transportation, who have in turn followed up with the operators. In some instances, it's one thing to arrive at the stop early, but it's a different thing to depart early. So we want to definitely, monitor that and take corrective action as necessary. You also noticed as we go further down, we added 2 other categories: planning, scheduling, IT mobile app. And the purpose of that was to break out that other miscellaneous category, which listed here are like mostly, if you will, the main types of complaints, but then there's still some others that fall in that other or miscellaneous category. So we broke out planning, scheduling, IT mobile app, but as you can see, there's still some other things that fall in that miscellaneous category. For example, if someone reported the bus was off route, or if there was some complaint about the equipment or that kind of thing, it will still fall in that category. And then we go over to the trend report. Again, seeing some areas where we could, stand to improve with the no-show, dealing with workforce challenges, and again, that early schedule kind of stands out. But then commendations, we had 7 of those for the month of February, and I'm happy to say that 5 of those were directed towards our customer service team, so. And 2 others for the operators. So that concludes my report. Did you have any questions?
I do, yeah. Go ahead, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you. I appreciate the breakout of the miscellaneous a little bit. I'm assuming that these are sort of the 2 big categories that were in the miscellaneous. I mean, you could chase miscellaneous down 10 or 20 rows if you wanted. So I think this will be helpful over time. I appreciate you doing that.
Yes, so you want to keep those 2, planning, scheduling, and the
I think it's helpful.
Any other questions? So I'm trying to understand non-verified. Complaint could not be verified based on the information provided. So that means that we had 34 complaints about passed up passengers that we could not verify, but they were actual complaints.
They were complaints, but based on the information provided by the person reporting the complaints, we weren't able to, it doesn't mean that it didn't happen, just based on the information provided, we couldn't verify that it happened.
If I may,
They may
sometimes
not give you where
customers
it
get,
is.
just, they may give you a location, or they may give you the
Right.
wrong time. And it may be a situation where they gave you a time, but the bus wasn't even scheduled there. We'll pull the footage, or we'll look on Clever, and we just can't verify based on what they provided.
It's a kind of scary number though.
Yeah.
Yeah, 34. I mean, I would assume that maybe some of it didn't happen, but 34 is a high number. 13 is a high number for non-verified route operators. And it's like almost 50 customer complaints for the month. So I don't know what we need to do, but that, you know, we don't want numbers this high on a monthly basis. So I mean, it's something that we definitely need to look into, whatever way.
Can we track the operators that, if we don't even know where it was, we don't even have a way to track the operator, right? Like, to see if the non-verifieds tend to be from maybe the same operator?
Based on the information that we have, we can determine which operator would have been on that route. So there is a way of tracking, and we do track the customer complaints based on operators, because once they receive so many verified ones, there is discipline that is administered. So we do track that.
It would just be interesting to know on the non-verified if there's a trend with a particular operator, because one person could rack up a lot of those complaints.
So the point is, though, we don't know. But the more we know, the better.
Sure.
So whatever we can do to try to help us get to know, because it's, I don't remember what it was last month, but I will remember this month for you. So, yeah.
Mr. Chair, one other question. I'm curious as to whether or not there's a connection between early scheduled departures when they leave early and when there's a passed up passenger. Is there a connection between the two where that similar complaint might be embedded in both? If a bus departs early, somebody's been passed up. Am I reading that potentially right?
Yeah, I mean, there are situations where that could happen, based on, I think it was one of them that we saw where the caller stated that, the bus passed them up, and they'll use that phrase, the bus passed me up. But when we look at it a little closer, during the investigation, we found out that it wasn't just that they were passed up per se, but that the bus actually departed early. So there is, some isolated instances where that may happen.
Because the goal of getting to the solution of getting that number down,
Right.
Mr. Nelson's request is, what is that solution? Seems like maybe a lot of that is early departures. I'm curious.
So the situation that you just gave us,
Sure.
would that be registered twice as an early schedule on the passed up?
No.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
And just for clarification, these are actual numbers, not percentages.
Correct.
Actual
Actually,
numbers.
yes.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Carter.
Yes.
Financial report, Mr. Zenzarella. And you guys can just go ahead and fold the subcommittee report into it. Yeah.
Morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. On page 33 of your package, you will find the January financial report. I'm going to refer you over to page 34, which is the highlights page, as we went through this report in depth at the Finance Committee on March 9th. So when the revenues, year-to-date revenues are unfavorable to budget by $4.1 million and is consistent with prior month's reporting, that is primarily driven by favorable operating expenditures being about $3.2 million below budget. As we've discussed previously, it's a function of budgeted headcount being lower than the actual headcount being lower than what was budgeted. We are seeing, to put it in layman's terms, we're seeing a volume variance with a favorable volume variance of unfavorable rate, because as we talked about,
The incentive and retention programs were not budgeted in fiscal '23, but the expenses are in there. So as you'll see, through the 7 months ending January, our surplus for the 7-month period is $2.68 million. That's about what it was at the end of December, as the incentives paid for retention and recruiting are starting to catch up with the calculation of the budget. All in all, we're also starting to see a little diminishing of some of the other favorable expenses in the purchase transportation expenses, as well as in the budget materials and supplies. That's just due to price pressures and so forth. All in all, looking down at the balance sheet, strong balance sheet, the cash position of $12.96 million, $9 million that is in the operating account. And referring over to page 53 of the cash flow. At the end of January 31st, the cash flow of $9 million, and we're forecasting that strength to continue through the balance of the quarter. And we're ending the quarter about $7.6 million in cash. At this point, those are kind of the highlights. If there's any questions, we'll take any specific questions. Mr. Chair, I don't know if anyone else has any issues with this, but I'm seeing a little bit of a formatting challenge on the highlight page. It just makes it a little cumbersome to read. I think is anybody else saying that?
Yeah.
Okay. But a little bit challenging. I think it's just things are being taken down to the next line instead of reading next to, we've got year-to-date revenues, and then you have to go down a couple of lines to get to the actual number. I don't know whether it's because of the iPad or what, but it's the iPad. If you go to the highlights page, yeah, it's not.
Ours doesn't look like
It
that.
doesn't translate to that. So we have to do a little bit of triangulating to get to the point of that.
Next month, let me try a landscape and see if that clears it up, because this is portrait.
Turn the screen.
Tell you that landscape, it's good.
It's still putting on.
Landscape is bigger.
All right, well, it is landscape then.
Something that
Oh, I guess it works.
Yeah, turn it the other way. They said that if you do that, no, it didn't work either way. No, it didn't work.
That's sound
Weird.
like I have an older iPad. Yeah.
If you put it in single page view.
That's what I was.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure the format out, the number, if the numbers are right, we're good.
Yeah, single page mode.
If you go to single page mode, if you go to the A with the 3 lines at the top,
Gotcha.
and then drop down to and go to single page mode, then it
Boom, there it is. Wonderful, thank you.
It also has to zoom in.
Problem solved.
The observation.
Some night trying to.
No, we can pinch it out.
Okay. You finished?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. You want to add anything, Jim?
in the finance committee meeting, we also went over procurement thresholds. I don't know if you want to speak on that, some of that.
Procurement threshold, what we had went through at the finance committee meeting, periodically, under federal acquisition regulations, they update the threshold. So it was updated in 2018. So what we brought a motion to the board, the finance committee, to update the limit for the small, the micro purchases from $3,500 to $10,000, as well as a small purchase threshold from $150,000 to $250,000. And also the FAR regulations eliminated the need to do a independent cost estimate for the small purchases. So we're just basically, by referencing the various various parts of our procurement management, update to the limits that are within the FAR, updated in June of 2018. It will provide efficiency in our procurement process.
I think other than that, we covered everything.
Any questions?
And just one more update, as we are progressing through the fiscal 24 budget, we're going to have a April Finance Committee meeting, and we're going to bring the proposed budget back at the Finance Committee. Items of note is that on March 14th, the Census Bureau released the CPIU figures for the month of February. As you recall, we passed a resolution that for this fiscal 24 budget, we're using a short indice period from June 2022 through February 23. That number is 1.53% increase. So the operating contributions that were adopted for fiscal 2023 will be indexed by 1.53%. The preliminary budgets that we presented in January had an assumption of 0.5%. So those numbers will be updated in April. I already shared, I can share the numbers. I shared it already with the city of Richmond. I can share it with the county.
Yeah, man, do that if you can. Yes, ma'am.
Do you want to let the board know that we lost our controller as of yesterday?
This, after about 6 years of service, Don Bailey resigned and left the organization as of yesterday. So we're in the current process of transitioning. We have an open job recruitment on, and currently we have a contracted employees in place for the transitions.
So did we expect it? Unexpected?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, any other things, finance? All right, thank you. All right, Ms. Adams, do you have anything?
I do have one thing. So I am now requiring all administrative staff to ride the bus at least once quarterly. And this is to support our operators as well as to see the life of an operator. Some of us are at our desk all day and don't realize everything that operators encounter. So as of starting April, all administrative employees will be required to ride the bus. And I encourage each of you, if you're in a position, to also ride and support our operators.
It's a good idea. Maybe we should all take that challenge up. Yeah, I don't know what committee, we'll talk about that, how to make that work. I think Councilwoman Robinson is on all the committees, so we'll figure that out. We'll figure that one out. We did have a visit from our CEO and Chief of Staff at our work session last week, I think, yeah. And so they, Cheryl and Adrian came and gave a presentation to our board. So have you guys been in Richmond or Chesterfield yet?
We have.
Okay, so hopefully Richmond, Chesterfield, you know, invite GRTC to come. I think it's about a 20-minute presentation, and received very warmly. And Rankin County administration and board members were so excited to see GRTC. Yeah, so I don't have anything else. Anybody, any other business? Yes, Chair. Yes.
I just want to get back with you all.
Yeah.
On the information. Excuse me.
Oh, so when you said hobble, you had your. Okay.
Back very fast. Last point, you got it. So, what was passed around are the stats for the graduation or throughput rate for last year. You see we had 10 classes through last year, and we had 68 total candidates that went through training. 53 of those graduated, and you'll see it's about 78% graduation rate for the year. And you'll see it broken down by each month, how we did. And just to give you a little gauge as far as this year goes, our first class was started in January. We had 6 to start, and 4 of those are graduating this week. And then out of our second class, February, that started 8, 7 are still in that class in training.
Okay. That's good.
Thank you.
Retention is good too.
All right, thank you. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, meeting adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.